Just because it says grass-fed doesn't mean that it was grass-finished. If you go to the supermarket and you pick up that, package of grass-fed ground beef in the packet, that's about as much as you know. You won't find any extra information that if you could shake the hand that feeds you, if you could talk to the farmer, you could ask those questions. Is this grass-fed and grass-finished? Or is it grass-fed and grain-finished? Was the grass sprayed with anything? Was it sprayed with our sides, herbicides, pesticides, rodenticides, fungicides? The sides meaning death, like homicide, that kill the soils, and the animals probably shouldn't eat those, especially you are what you eat. So we want to think about these things and not doing it in a way that feels attacking or probing, but you deserve to know where your food comes from and how that food was treated. And what I found in, my local communities, and I think this is more widely available than we realize, is there are a lot of farmers around you, likely. Even if you live in a city, if you go half an hour outside of the city, you can find farmers that would love to go direct to consumer, that might not even be at the farmer's market. And if you can do direct to consumer processing, you can not only have a lot of control over the inputs and where you vote with your dollar, it's often very cheap, or cheaper comparatively, and you get to kind of have a animal that was maybe processed, and even in the highest cases field dressed in a more kind and compassionate way. Because here's the disconnect: even if you got 100% USDA certified organic grass-fed and finished beef at a store, to even get that label of USDA certified organic, even if the animal was 100% grass-fed and finished, it did spend its last 12 to 24 hours in the back of a truck, getting shipped off to a certified USDA plant where it was kept in the dark. That's in an attempt to calm them down, where it's then put inside of a machine that kind of constricts the movement. All very stressful. It's not around its native environment. It's not with its friends, the smells that it's used to, the scenes that it's used to receive the bolt in the head. And I've been speaking increasingly to people that hunt and farm, and they always talk about the importance of a clean kill. And a big part of the reason for that is compassion for the animal and reverence for the animal, but also so that you don't spoil the meat. If you don't take a clean shot and the animal is wounded and runs a long time, the meat can become spoiled because of the stress hormones, like the adrenaline and the cortisol that can infiltrate some of the meat. And then it's interesting to me that we kind of sometimes gloss over that conversation when we think about the beef, the ground beef, the ribeyes, the steaks, the cuts that we're consuming in the store. How much stress was that animal under? In an ideal world, I think the best way to go out, as Taylor Collins described in our podcast, is that animal is in its native environment with all of its pals and it's all of its smells, and it's in its same routine, in its home, and it's safe. And along comes the rancher and boom, a bullet in the back of the head or in the brain. The animal goes down. It knew no different, and it was removed from consciousness immediately. And in some cases, if you start going direct to consumer, you can find people that do it this way, and they can even field dress, which means they can, make the cuts there, and then they take them to the processing. Or you can have custom butchers that you can get, and that's what I did last year. I got a half cow that was custom butchered for me exactly to the specifications that I want, the amount of ground beef that I wanted, the thickness of the steaks that I wanted. And because of doing that, I got to ask my farmer all of these questions about what kind of grass, and in the winter, what were they fed? Oh, hay is just dried grass. Was that hay sprayed? No, that hay wasn't sprayed. That's great to know, because a lot of hay is sprayed. In fact, we feed our goats hay, and it's actually very, very hard to find non-sprayed hay. And people will actually advertise their hay as sprayed because they think it's a flex. You have to remember, we get caught in these echo chambers sometimes. We know that sprayed grasses aren't good for the ecosystems and the soil health, and thus the animal that consumes them. But in a more conventional model of farming and consumption and agriculture, people love things like Roundup because it keeps the weeds away. So people are like, oh, I have tons of bales of sprayed hay. It's great, because they're basically telling you this hay is just pure grass. It doesn't have weeds in it. So we have to look far and wide for hay that is not sprayed. And these are only questions you get to ask and answer for yourself if you talk to the kind of people that had it. So you can learn a lot about the feed type, and if they were grain finished, were they finished on a non-GMO organic corn and a sweet feed to add a little bit of marbling? And is that what you want? Do you want a little bit more fat because it's better for you from a mouthfeel perspective? Or do you want 100% grass-fed and finished? What were they using for medications? Were they vaccinating their cows? All questions that you can only find out if you have a relationship to your farmer. So I think this is important, and it really highlights a lot of, what can go on behind the scenes, behind the curtain of the show of farming, even when we're doing the best we can and we think we're nailing it. 100% grass-fed and finished, certified USDA organic. They are still, owned, regulated properties, and therefore the animals must go there, and they're taken out of the natural habitat, and they're probably stressed out. And in an ideal world, I don't think any of us want that, So there's a conversation to be had there, and thinking about, taking to Facebook groups in your local community, searching for these Facebook groups, asking questions. If you're in rural towns, it's often a lot easier, but even if you're in cities, the questions and the connections that you can find at the farmer's market, you're only ever 1 degree removed from finding the person that sells the milk, or finding the person that's doing a slightly higher grade of this, that, and the other that you're looking for. Now, of course, as we, if we don't have access to either of those, we can always use subscription services. Like Force of Nature Meats, like Taylor Collins, what they're doing, they're 100%, like truly, honestly, regeneratively raised, sourced, farmed, and harvested meats in a very healthy way. And these are great options to have. And again, we do factor in the cost of where we're spending that money, because although that is a really high quality source of meat, it is packaged in plastic. It is put inside of boxes. It is put on the back of FedEx and UPS trucks, and it's shipped all around the globe. And, not to be a whole, get into the climate alarmist thing, but we know that one of the arguments that are levied against us people that choose to eat meat and support an animal-based diet is that cow farts, cow burps are destroying the planet. Not only is red meat bad for you, as we're told, cholesterol and saturated fat, and we rally against those arguments, but we're also told it's selfish and it's destroying the planet because of greenhouse gas emissions. Now, via the work of Diana Rogers at the Sustainable Dish and the statistics published by EPA.gov, if you actually look at total greenhouse gas emissions, agriculture only accounts for about 3.9% of total agriculture emissions, and beef itself is only 2% of that. But transport is 28.5%. So 3.9% ag emissions, greenhouse gas, and then you've got almost 30% from transport, and you've got other huge players here like industry and electrical, etc. But if we really want to then vote with our dollar and vote with regenerative farms that are healing the soils, and also then address the other elephant in the room, which is this transportation issue, then it makes a lot of sense to stay as local as possible, because the transport then is a lot smaller. I don't need to get things shipped from the West Coast when I can get it 10 miles from my home. And I don't need to order subscription boxes every month and have to deal with that when I can get it with a little bit of effort, with a little bit of detective work on my own. So just something to think about, because it's like I said, new levels, new devils, and all of that. When you become aware of one thing, you become aware of how deep the rabbit hole goes. And I do feel that if we are to move forward and keep improving our health, and when I say our health, I mean the health of us as individuals, but collectively, and our soils, and supporting our farmers, that it really is a grassroots movement of doing that. It's not going to come from any top-down system that, have this benevolent kind of view of the world of, oh yeah, regenerative agriculture is really important and we should save the planet, because we see those misaligned incentives and broken incentives aren't doing that. So it's on us. And if we have the capacity to do this, and we have the opportunity to vote with our dollar and support these systems and support these farmers doing it in the right way, that's the only thing we can really do in order to enact change. Hello, friends. If you enjoyed that clip, then you can watch the entire thing by heading to this link over here, or you can find us wherever you find podcasts by searching Radical Health Radio. If there's value here, please hit that like button. Let us know in a comment what your biggest takeaway was, and hit subscribe. Support the show as we support you. We'll see you soon.